Welcome to the Ball at All Cost podcast. We are here with an elite, esteemed guest, and we are back once again to do what we do best. How you doing, OC? How you doing, Gabs? How are you doing, Dan, aka Just the Dad?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm well. It's been a quiet weekend. Team didn't play today, but my son's carrying a bit of an injury anyway, so he won't play for the next couple of weeks. So just got to try and keep him entertained and try and keep him off his feet, which is going to be a hard job. But yeah, all good.
That's good. Next week you'll be going along to the game, regardless of whether he's playing, with your scarf on, with your flag, singing I'm not going to say your team's names, but singing their songs, won't you?
Yeah, that's what we signed up for, man. Fully fledged supporter, so we're there. If it's at home. If it's away and too far, we might just need to stay in church and maybe get a FaceTime going.
Fair enough. Dan, how you doing?
I'm good. It's been a nice weekend, good football weekend. Winter's here, so it's proper Sunday football now. Cold, rains, that thin, fine rain. It's the business end. Now we get cracking now. Proper winter, proper football. Let's go.
Did you say you're complaining about the cold and the rain?
No.
There are people still wearing shorts.
No. I'm saying it's proper grassroots football now. It's wet, it's rainy, it's cold. This is what it's really about. So we're here now. It's all good.
Okay, all good. Apologies, I'm chopping up, but I caught you. You said it's good footballing weather is what I'm hearing. Gabs, to the bem. Can you say it twice? Or does it sound corny saying it twice?
No, man. Do you know what I mean? It's vibes, isn't it? So, yeah. Todo bem, man. Você? That means, how are you?
Okay, good. I'm good, thank you. I'm good. I'm just, when I speak to any Brazilian, I say to the bem. Just reminds me of my time once there, that place I always wanted to go to. Lucky enough to see a World Cup there. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was a good time. A time was had.
Yeah, special place.
Yeah.
Special place.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're missing Deji. I don't know if he's going to join, but like Deji, I haven't admitted it on the pod. I too have a Brazilian name. He has his name is Dejinho, apparently, because what he does with a ball at his feet is remarkable.
Whoa. I'm taking that back. We see Deji play football. It's definitely remarkable.
You've not. It's not. Well, that's a debate. That's you two can have that argument. I'm just saying I've got a Brazilian name too, and it's Braneo. So yeah, I've been there, number 10 on my back, even though I'm a number 9, but you have to wear number 10 if you're wearing a Brazilian number, even though the Phenom wore number 9. Zico and Pele wore 10. Yeah. And Dino. So yeah. Anyway, we move. How are you doing, Gab? How's your week been?
Yeah, all good. Obviously, like weekend, so dominated by football. But it's probably the best part of the week, isn't it? So, yeah, always look forward to this time of the week. And, yeah, like Dan said, we're getting into the colder months. This is it's the period we all look forward to, isn't it?
Exactly that. Footballing weekend, you can't have it any other way. We moan when it gets to, I don't know, April, and it's just been a long season. But when it gets to June, July, and there's no football the weekend, and we're watching Gaelic football on TV or whatever it is, no one's happy. So we have to enjoy it while it's here for 10 months. Although we had the Club World Cup this year. Anywho, Gabs, you've not watched the show. You actually have watched the show, so you kind of know how we do. We have our check-in, which we've just had, and then we want to know more about you. Why we tell the listeners why we're interviewing you. How did you get into football? Where did it start? Obviously, it started in Brazil because you're from Brazil. So how did that start? How did you come to England? Were you doing football in Brazil? At what level were you doing it? And how did you get into football in England?
Yeah, so obviously when you're born in Brazil, you know, you naturally pick up the game. Do you know what I mean? Even before you're even conscious enough to pick it up, is, you know, you're given a football shirt the moment that you're born, and that ends up becoming your team. In my case, I'm very lucky to be a Corinthians supporter. Do you know what I mean? It's a club that I actually find really really personable to myself, considering the life that I've had in terms of it originated in England and got taken over to Brazil. But yeah, so for me, my first memories is watching that superpower Brazil team with Rivaldo, Ronaldinho, Ronaldo, Roberto Carlos, Cafu, and that was probably when my love of football really came. I moved over to England when I was quite young, and ever since then I just started playing and played an okay level. Was never good enough or fit enough to play academy football at them times, but I figured out quite early that I wanted to go into coaching. So I started doing my badges quite early. Had quite a couple of challenging moments whilst I was a young person playing football. So for me, one thing that's really important is, can I make sure that I'm not that young person's last football coach? So can I be able to, really help and inspire them and make sure that they carry on having a healthy appetite to play the game? In terms of my coaching journey, it probably started when I was about 16, 17. At the time, I was doing a college program with Tottenham Hotspur at the time, and I was quite fortunate that I had probably two of the best coaches in the industry, in terms of a guy called Steve Embleton and another guy called Aklakani, who really helped shape how I see football, how I deal with people, and their impact was ever so large. I was able to, I'm able today to call them personal friends. I've been fortunate enough to travel the world with them and really spend some higher contact time with them. So that, during that time, I was a college student, ended up doing some voluntary work with them. My last day of college, I was actually offered a part-time position, and that was fantastic, because that allowed me to get access to a whole number of different opportunities and scenarios at a really early stage. So I was working right across the foundation programs or football in the community. So sometimes going into a primary school, secondary school, doing a disability session, going to community session. So in terms of my coaching clock, it was a fantastic opportunity just for me to grow and develop. Post-college, I was also given the opportunity by one of my former coaches, Zach Lakani, to go in and be part of his coaching staff for the reserve team at Tottenham Hotspur Women, who at the time were in the third tier of women's football. And for me, that was, to date, one of my best experiences, because it really allowed me to see what excellence looks like, even though at the time I probably wasn't aware of it. So I did that for a while, and then ended up going full-time with Spurs, delivering across primary schools in Brent. Projects naturally came to an end. Ended up going to Leyton Orient, in which I again did a primary school type of role, but also coached in the academy, which was a role that I was really proud of, because by the time I'd left the club, I was fortunate enough to say that I'd worked with every single player from under nines up until second year scholar. You know what I mean? So that gave me quite a good experience. I had a very short opportunity at Arsenal, working in the pre-academy, but I had a little bit too much change in my life going on at the time to commit to it. So it was an opportunity that I couldn't do for as long as I would have liked to do. And obviously my full-time job, which is currently working with young people in local communities, and trying to use football as a tool for opportunity and rehabilitation and self-development, alongside being a coach developer, which is fantastic, because you get to speak about football for X amount of hours across the day. And those are some of my experiences, alongside doing loads of different international stuff that have come through some of those opportunities as well. So I know I've gone on a bit of a tangent there, but that's a little bit about me.
Cool. Gabs, you've done it in that. I think we spoke before about you looking at how you rebrand and telling people how good you are and what you do. Like, I worked with you for a couple of years at QPR, and like you do so much, and you bring like you got a lot of passion for working with young people and developing them. Like it's just like, and I've met us like we call you LTEL, we called you LTEL, yeah, because even though you're from Brazil, you don't sound like you're from Brazil. Apart from you mentioned certain things in the Brazilian twang. But with that in mind, like everyone talks about the great technicals of the Brazilian football and the South American football. Do you look at your philosophy in coaching and in terms of what would you look at over building mentality and resilience and literally those early technical skills at the early stage? What would you look at as that your philosophy in teaching like these young boys what they do next?
I think for me, I think a lot of people when they ask me this question, they think I'm going to talk about the X's and O's. Far from it. For me, coaching is about connecting. It's about building relationships with people and being able to leave a legacy. Obviously, with that, there's an element of competency on the technical and tactical element. But first of all, it's about building that connection because, like I'll give you an example. I've coached your son. Now, if we didn't have the relationship that we had, and he was to see me in a pub 20 years down the line, he won't remember the sessions I did with him, but he'll remember the mannerisms and the way that I made him feel. So in terms of building connection, I think it's something that's so important because it's something that's very easily overlooked. On the technical side, for me, I think technique is king. Because if you can't control a ball, if you can't kick a ball, if you can't run with a ball, then you're gonna find it really, really hard to play football. So it's one of those ones for me. I think you have to. I remember years ago having a coach developer, and he used to say, "The ball's your enemy. You need to make it your friend." And yeah, I agree with the second part of it, but for me, it's one of those ones where young players, they need to love the ball. They need to be able to have that innovation with it. They need to spend out hours and hours and hours with it. They need to understand how it's going to bounce, how it's going to fall. They need to understand the different surface. They need to understand, how it might come to you when it deflects of someone's shin. Do you know what I mean? They need to have that contact time with the ball. And obviously, as a coach, is something that I try to encourage the players to do in my sessions. But the reality is they need to do it in their spare time. They need to have that player-led learning that actually they're going to go in the garden and they're going to try and do their 100, 200, 300 kick-ups and that's how they're going to get better. Because, the more you practice, the more you're going to be able to I'm not going to say perfect something because perfection is something that you're always chasing, but you're going to be able to develop that technique. You're going to be able to develop that skill.
100%. So you've been like, not everyone knows this, but obviously you don't just coach in the UK. You go beyond borders and beyond internationally. Mm-hmm. So when you're coaching abroad, what are the main differences, especially in those foundations ages that you probably come across? What are the differences in terms of the commitment, the desire, the technical ability between the boys we see in academies here and grassroots and the boys internationally that you obviously come to contact with?
So I'll mention the US because it's a market that I've been going to for a number of years. So when you work out in the States, one thing that you have to consider is that a lot of those young people, they're going to play a number of different sports, sometimes 4, maybe even 5. And the soccer season for high school is actually quite short. It's about 16 weeks. So over the course of 52 weeks, 52 weeks where you've got school holidays, you're only playing soccer for about 15, 16. So what are the players doing in the other time? Obviously, where they're doing different sports, such as lacrosse is quite popular, basketball is quite popular, their football is quite popular. Then you've got soccer. You might have your golf players. Mechanically, they're going to do things slightly different because of the practices that they're doing when they're applying themselves in those sports. That's not to say that multi-sports is a bad thing, because I'm all for having a multi-sports approach. but in terms of priority, it might be a little bit lower. So in terms of the technical returns, they're not going to be on the level of English player that's in an academy playing 3-4 times a week and doing his own provision outside of his club commitments, because the contact time is going to be so much different. But it's also looking at culture in England and in Britain. We live and breathe football. We play football 10 months a year, and then depending on where you live in the country, you might go do cricket for 2 or 3. Depending again on what type of school you go to and where you live, you might do rugby for a couple of months. But everyone plays football, so because everyone plays football, everyone's going to be slightly better technically. They're going to be used to the game a little bit more in terms of a physical aspect. The football environment looks different because it's different cultures, and again because of the regularity that the players are spending in football environments, it's going to create different types of different types of environments. So it's a little bit different across the world because we like I said, this culture, we see the game slightly different, but essentially it's one game, and it's one game that unites everyone.
Just there's a couple of points that you've made which I want to dig into a little bit more. And obviously, so you work across the continent, but what are your thoughts on the multi-sports? More I suppose more in the foundation phase, because obviously over here we're very football heavy, and playing football 5, 6, 7 times a week, which is fine. But I just want to hear a bit more about the multi-sports and how you think that might apply in the UK.
It's all transferable skills. I think the more sports you do, the better, because in terms of those fundamentals and being able to really focus down on on certain technical elements and certain physical elements, it's only going to benefit the players. Football's so transferable. There's certain elements of football that you can really compare with basketball in terms of you consistently changing direction, you can consistently excelling and decelling. You're working at high tempos. Obviously, you're in basketball, you spend a little bit more time out in terms of the breaks, but then you also look at tennis where you're consistently changing direction as well. So there's a little bit more emphasis on how strong your core is. You look at how similar tennis is to defending. You look at the body shape that Roger Federer would make when he's hitting the ball with a backhand. It could be quite similar to poking a football when you're defending 1v1. The same way that your body shape when you're hitting a ball with a forehand could be quite similar to a body shape when you're defending a player 1v1. So in terms of transferability, multi-sports is vital because it's going to allow the players to learn different things, and then when they go and practice their football, they can use the learnings that they have from those sports to self-correct or even apply directly into football. So it's something that I'd encourage. Obviously, it gets to a stage where the academy player has to start to make a choice and focus on, actually, I want to do football full time, or I want to do that sport full time. But up until then, I'd encourage it as much as I can.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you say, it's all transferable, and I just feel like in the UK, I bang on about this. I don't want to go on about it too much, but I do think in the UK we might be missing a trick with everything just being so football dominant rather than letting young kids just express and learn from other sports. But I suppose the other question that I've got is, I'm just interested to know, like, what it is that you love about the game, about coaching, because you've worked in different environments, obviously in the academy setting, outside of the academy setting. Are you focused on trying to get boys, girls up to a level where they can play academy football, or is it more just allow them to play the game and improve?
No, for me, it's more about progression and life progression. So yeah, it's a fantastic feeling when you see someone that you've coached get a scholar or get a first year pro, or get their first real pro contract. When you've played a part in that, that's amazing. But looking at what I do in my other capacity, when you get someone that's on the verge of making a poor decision in life, and then you can help that person and put a little bit more of a support structure around them, and you see them then go to university or go into some sort of employment, is probably even more fulfilling, because you've provoked a mindset. You've been able to have a real positive change and impact, which again goes back to my point earlier on connection. So yeah, for me, coaching is all about helping. It's all about helping and teaching and developing. I think football's the glue. The same way that a basketball coach would say that the basketball is the glue, and a cricket coach would say that the cricket is the glue. The sport is the thing that unites us, is the thing that brings us together. Now, what keeps the young person in the building is the connection, it's the relationship that they have and the experience that they have with that coach. And that's where I really pride myself on being quite conscious of the experience that I give my players. Because it's one of them ones. I want my players to remember me as being a coach that was enthusiastic, that was able to really help them develop, that was able to make sure that they enjoy their football. And if you can learn something along the way, then even better. But that's how I look at it. I'd imagine a lot of people will be similar. Some will be different, but if we all have similar views on the world, then it will be quite a boring place. So. Yeah, for me, it's all about connecting and progressing.
Yeah, I don't know if everyone's got the same view, but yeah, do you know what? Football is a teacher, isn't it? And I just feel like sport in general is so. I think the ethos that you've got in just terms of helping kids progress, do you know what I mean? Like better themselves in life. I think football's a great tool in doing that. So yeah, props to you on that.
Cheers.
I think we've got Andrew back. I might just drop another one in, and then I'll invite Andrew on. But I think we've touched on it in different episodes. But I think you're the first person, from my memory, that has spoken about like a player-led approach to development. What sort of age would you say that should really start and apply? Because for me, a lot of it is very parent-led, like getting in cars, driving them there, driving them everywhere. What's your thoughts on it being driven by the player? Because sorry, before you answer, I was having a conversation last weekend, and basically in our football team, there's one kid who plays 7 days a week, like he just plays all the time. And what I was saying is, with my boy, I don't push him to train. Like I've been in that season where like, listen, we got to get out, we got to do this, we got to do that. But now I'm like, if he doesn't really want to do it, I'm not really going to push him to. Do you understand? Because if it's not coming from him, then later on down the line, when it needs to come from him, it's probably not going to be. It's probably not going to, because I'm driving him here and I'm asking him to do X, Y, Z stuff. So, yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
No, I completely agree. For me, the player-led learning, I think it happens from the moment they start playing. It happens from the moment that they go, Dad, I'm going to go into the garden with my ball and I'm just going to practice. That's them having ownership and taking leadership of their learning. They might not realize that the learning is happening, but at that minute when they're kicking the ball against the wall, they're self-correcting all the time. So in terms of outcomes, they're getting a lot of returns. I think what happens is what happens over the years where football's changed is where it's become a little bit more professionalized. You're starting to lose certain things that I think all four of us would have had when we was growing up, like playing on the street. Again, that's a massive example of a player-led environment, because when we was playing Wembley, we're learning how to take people on and how to defend 1v1. The same way that when we was playing 60 seconds, we was learning how to chip the ball and how to volley it or how to header it. So when you lose those type of environments where the parents aren't there and it's just the players, it's a massive trade-off, because you lose that and then you go into a more structured environment. Sometimes it's a bit of a balance in terms of, one, you can learn more because you've got a specialist teaching, but it's not as fun because you know, it's being driven by an adult and you're being told what to do. So it's about trying to find a balance. For me, I think the best players, they'll practice as much as they can, and they'll perfect things as much as they can. If you give them a bit of homework and you say, listen, next week I want you to be able to come back and you've got to be able to do 20 kick-ups. They'll come back and they'll be able to do 20 kick-ups. And then the next week you say to them, next week you've got to be able to do 40 on your weaker side. They'll be able to do those 40 because they'll be determined enough to take ownership of their training and their learning, and they'll be able to go and do it. But for me, I genuinely believe that if a child wants to play football, let them play football. Because over the years where I've coached so many players, the amount of players that I've seen at under 9, they're doing 7 days a week, and then they get to under 12 and they just go, Dad, I've had enough. Like I'm knackered, because all they've done is football, and then they lose those social opportunities that also help a young person develop. It gets a bit too much and it can get a bit too serious. And most players will play football and will play their best football when they're enjoying it, when they're happy, and when they want to be there. There's nothing worse than having a player that doesn't want to be there, because even if they give it their all, they're not going to get the most from the opportunity. So I think for me, if a player wants to play football or any other sport, let them do it. And if they don't, then they're not going to want to do it. Obviously, there's times, and depending on the environment that they're in, that the parents might have to guide them. But language is important, and I use the word guide instead of force, because they're two different things, aren't they? So, that's my take on it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's some good insight there. Andrew, I'll let you jump in.
You're my guy. You know why? Because I know you're Brazilian. Like, I know you're Brazilian. It's not a front. You know why I know you're Brazilian? We've had other coaches on, we've had other guests on, and they all speak of Wembley. No one's mentioned 60 seconds, headers and volleys. That's why I know you're Brazilian. Joga Benito. This is what I'm talking about. So before we move it on, I know I'm taking a left turn here, but who's the GOAT? I need to know who's the GOAT, and then I know which kind of line of combo we can go down.
My hero, the reason I play football, is Ronaldo Nazario. For me,
R9, right? We can move. That's it. We can talk, right? Because all of this CR7, notice I have to call him CR7. I can't call him Ronaldo.
No. There's only two. There's only two. There's him, and then there's Dino.
Dino. Okay, all right. My language. Okay, we can move now. Right. So I wanted to take a left turn, a bit of a shift of gear now, because I understand you're back at Orient, and you spoke on something that I picked up on, and OC picked up on as well, about the fact that you kind of coach with this passion for enjoyment, self-led, and which is beautiful, and which is the way it should be. You mentioned under 8s, they're under 9. So I'm guessing you coach or have coached with the pre-academy guys.
Well, I'm actually going into Orient in the next couple of days. So some of the boys I'll know, some of them I wouldn't really have. I'll be meeting them for the first time.
Yeah.
Pre-academy is something that I've done for years. So yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So, and the reason I mention that is because I think it's time now we can speak about it. You weren't there when this happened, I don't believe, but we know some boys that have been at Orient, for example. They've been in their pre-academy for a few years. And then it got to the time of, say, signing, and they didn't get signed. But the reason I'm asking this question and bringing it up is because you sound like a passionate coach. And I'm sure all of the coaches are passionate, but your passion seems to me like you would be very friendly, very approachable, always there to help. And I'll land in a second, but I guess when the boys didn't get signed, none of them had any conversations with Orient. Orient only sent them, and most academies, I'm not just picking up Orient, just sent them emails. And a lot of parents at the time didn't think that was okay, because the boys had been there a couple of years and they'd traveled up and down the country, and they just got an email. Can you talk on that process, and particularly that situation, and why that is and why that might be?
I think, most clubs would take that type of approach. Where I've worked at different clubs, I've seen different types of ways when you're having those difficult conversations to deliver it to the player and to the parent. I think a lot of clubs, the way that football's gone now, in terms of player care and safeguarding, which is really important. I think a lot of clubs, they don't want the player to witness those difficult conversations. So sometimes they'll give it to you in writing. Some clubs where I've worked at before, they give you the option. So in terms of you finding out if you're being retained or released or being signed, they will say to you at the end of your trial, you can either have it in writing, you can have a conversation, or you can have it letter in person, or you can have it as an email. It's up to the parent or guardian to decide the way that they want to have that conversation. But I think a lot of the times it's more influenced by a player care side of the game, in terms of where traditionally you would have been released in a corridor. I think football's gone away from that, and they want to make sure that they follow best practice. Now, what best practice looks like is subjective to organisation, subjective to the people that you have in the building. But I think a lot of the times it will be based off on that side, on the player welfare side of it.
And that's very good to know, and thank you for that insight, because the player welfare side is very, very important. Myself and Dan speak about this all the time, and we see instances of this, and just literally just this week where that wasn't the case, and it's very important. And it does seem, I guess, parents hearing this and listening, and this is why I asked the question, because we try to give information to parents that they probably wouldn't have had access to before, and it's just understanding why that might be the case, why it seems a bit faceless, why it seems a bit cold, and it's important they understand it's not because people don't want to have these conversations, people don't care, and coaches don't care who have cared for the last 2 years, whatever it may be, but it's a process, and it's a process that they believe is in the best interest of the child. So I think that's important. I think that's very important. So thank you for that again. So you're in the academy or pre-academy setup, and I think a lot of parents believe that their child should be in there. They believe that their child's better than kids that are in there. Typically, what do you? I don't know if you scout at all, but what is it you see in a player that comes into a pre-academy against, let's say, a grassroots player who's fighting to get in there? What are the major differences?
So pre-academy would be more, I call it pure, because there's no tactics in the game. Is 5v5 or 6v6 or 7v7, and what it should look like is, actually, if you're the goalkeeper, I'm going to go and collect it off you, and I'm going to try and dribble against the whole team and try and score. That's in my opinion, that's what pre-academy football should look like. The players that get signed, they'll be able to do that, and the better you do it, probably the bigger the club you go to, and then the players that can still do it, they find a level for themselves across the system. The grassroots player, in terms of the difference between them and the player that goes into a pre-academy, it could be a number of things. It could be, the pre-academy players picked up a little bit more technique in a shorter space of time. So then that way they get an opportunity, because when they get the ball, they look slightly different. They look a little bit tidier. They could be physically quite dominant. So then that would allow them to get across the pitch and get back a little bit more. But then also the biggest difference is where those pre-academy players, they're playing with each other and they're training with each other a lot more their intensity is a little bit different because when you see a trialist come in, you normally notice that it takes them a couple of weeks to get going because they're not used to the tempo. Now they either adapt within a couple of weeks or they find it a little bit hard. Over the years, most do adapt, but then when you're adapting, you're either flying or you're surviving, which is not a bad thing because it shows that you can play the level. But in terms of getting signed, you're going to need to smash it. You're going to need to be able to stand out. You're going to have something that's different or better than what's in the group already. So in terms of competition, it's the hardest thing, isn't it? Because you're asking a 6-year-old to compete against what's in front of them, which is a bit of a crazy thing to say because if you look at what 6-year-olds are learning in school, they're learning how to form sentences, they're learning how to read. But then when you're putting them in a football space, you're asking them to actually go and get the ball and dribble past these players. And then when you don't have it, can you go and get it back as quick as you can? Which is something that adults struggle with sometimes. But because it's in a football space, I think sometimes we change our expectations. So yeah, in terms of getting signed and coming in as a trialist, those are the differences. You normally see like technically how quickly they can execute certain things or how they can move. Or one thing that people often don't realize is, especially at pre-academy, your birthday can be a massive deal maker because if you're born in September and you're in the same age group as someone that's born in the following August, there's 11 months difference, isn't there? So in terms of when you're 6 or 7, that's a massive difference. That's a massive difference. It's about a fifth. You're about a fifth older than the player that's potentially the youngest in the group. So in terms of recruitment, because one of my personal beliefs is that any scout can pick a player, but the best scouts, they can pick the player with the best potential, and that's something that's really hard to do because it takes so long to master that eye and be able to really recognize actually little Johnny over there. I know he's going through a stage right now where physically he's really struggling, but I see the potential. He's going to come good, and then sometimes they do, don't they? So that's a little bit about the trialing process. But it's also every player has a different experience. So it's essentially it's about can you come in and can you try and do your best, and hopefully if you do well enough, something comes from it, and that's got to be your mentality going into it.
Yeah. Could I pause there for a second? So many gems, so many points I want to dig deeper into, but just can we talk about you mentioned the difference between, say, grassroots and pre-academy, and I think you used the word pure. So it's pure raw talent that gets you into a pre-academy. The boys that can dribble from the goalkeeper, go and score a goal, have that wow moment, but be totally dominant. And obviously you mentioned Q1 against Q4 there. Now, if we fast forward a little bit and then we go into the foundation stage, what are the major differences there when it that kind of pure talent kind of levels off? Are we looking at decision making more so and agility and athleticism as the pitches get bigger?
Yeah. So best players are always going to be the best players. You look at Messi, the Brazilians that we've spoken about, the Neymars of the world. No coach has taught them how to do that. They've picked them up. They've picked that up themselves, and they've been able to master their craft. What the coach has done is gone to him and listen, like, you see your body shape there, just open it up a little bit, and when you're volleying the ball, right, can you try and not let your foot hit the ground? So then you keep that balance a little bit more. When you go thigh to inside of the foot, can you make sure that you go thigh inside and your foot doesn't touch the ground, so then your contact's a little bit cleaner. That's what the coach is there to do, because like I said, the best players are always going to be the best players. They're gonna have their unique skill set, and they're gonna do it as best they can. Now, your job as a coach is just to try and help him and guide him and correct him. Sometimes the players will do things slightly different. I always talk about Luis Felipe Scolari, the goal that Rivaldo scored against England in the 2002 World Cup, where Ronaldinho steps and then he rolls it with the outside of his foot, and Rivaldo opens up his body to take it on his left, where Scolari has been saying to him the whole week, you need to take it on your right, you need to take it on your right, you need to take it on your right. But the players had the ownership there because he's practiced it on his left foot so many times that he's gone and done it on his left foot. So sometimes a coach can interrupt. So it's about finding a balance of when do you correct and when do you let the player do things in the most comfortable and best way that they can do. Because essentially, if we all do it the same, then we can overcoach sometimes. And it's about finding a balance, because the mavericks that you have in football, they disobey the orders. They're the ones that are they're gonna break the rules. They're the ones that are gonna get the ball when there's 2 lines of 4, and they're gonna play a 1-2 and then dribble past the 2 centre backs and round the goalie. That's what they're gonna do. But then there's also a place for your steady eddies, where they're going to have their good pass completion. They're going to be able to win the ball back. They're going to be able to hit a diag. And it's about trying to complement those players. I think one myth that we hear a lot is treat them all the same. No, you have to treat them all different. Your values stay the same, but you have to treat them all different, because they're different people. They have different strengths. They have different experiences. They're from different cultures. So they're going to look at things slightly different. Now, your job as a coach is try and put it all together and try and get them to the next stage.
Brilliant. Again, I've got so many questions. I see OC's taking himself off mute, but what I will say is shame on Big Phil trying to tell Gummy to use his right foot. And for those that don't know, Gummy is Rivaldo's nickname in Brazil because he had no teeth. But Rivaldo was him and Adriano, probably the 2 most left-footed players I've seen come out of Brazil. They don't use their right foot. It is literally only for standing on. And just to add to that point, you mentioned Messi defying the rules. I tell all my boys, don't use the outside of your foot to pass the ball. Shape up, use the instep. Messi never uses the instep. Literally off the dribble is always the outside because he's enticing players in. But like you say, he knows what he's doing. He plays the game in 4D, just like Dino, just like R9. So and those greats. But OC, I'll hand back to you before I continue.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick one. So, yeah, you've got natural talents. You've just got gifted players that we've just touched upon, and you see them at this young age as well. But question that I've got is, in terms of those details that you just mentioned, like those fine details that might just help a player just open up their understanding. Do you think that we see that in the grassroots space, or does that happen in the academy space either? Because I'm not privy to academy coaching, but would that be more akin to get that knowledge within academy space, or are we speaking about small group sessions with coaches that might be? I'm just trying to understand where they're going to get that information.
Yeah. So for me, one thing that's quite controversial that I tend to say is that I think where the academy system has to change a little bit is where you have your more experienced coaches at the top end working with your under 21s, 18s, 16s, and your younger coaches working at the bottom end. I think you should flip it and have your more experienced coaches working with the younger age groups and your least experienced coaches working up, because then that way you can get someone around them and they can help each other. Whereas if you have really experienced practitioners working at the earlier stage, then those technical gems and those technical details, they come out in the player a lot easier because your eye is used to it. So you can pick up a couple of bits that an inexperienced coach won't be able to pick up because you've seen it over the years and you've repeated the cycles a couple of times. I think depending on the club that you go to, because obviously in not just England but across the world, certain clubs will have more resource than others. I think in this day and age, the clubs that I've worked at, certainly they like to do a lot of individual stuff. from an early stage. So it's important that that the players are exposed to it, but you don't want to overdo it, because especially at an early stage, it's about them trying to get on the ball and trying to do not the right things, but trying to do the things that they're best at. They're trying to make their strength their super strength, and they're trying to improve their areas for development. One thing that we don't really do these days is say weakness, because we don't want the players to think they've got a weakness. We want them to think, I need to develop this, because then the mindset and the approach is slightly different. So yeah, depending on the club and the resource that they have. And when I say resource, I'm talking about training ground, number of pitches, is it astro or is it grass, number of staff that they employ. Because I know some clubs will have four coaches per age group, whereas some clubs may only have one. So it becomes a lot harder to execute those fine individual details. But there's a real craft and trait in being able to be a coach that's on their own and coach the players consistently all the time. It's something that's quite challenging. But the better coaches, the more experienced coaches, they've gone through those spells. So then when they go into environments where there's a little bit more resource, it's a bit easier to implement those methods.
Yeah, okay, because obviously that's more of the academy environment. I'm just thinking about the player and the parents that are listening now that are outside of that particular environment. And I suppose, listen, I sound like I'm against one-to-ones. I'm not necessarily against them, but based on what you're saying, I think that's where coaches are going to see those details. Maybe one-to-one, or maybe like a small intimate session, 2 to 4 players. Mm-hmm. So it's just making me think about my whole philosophy about how do we get these outcomes and how do we get the best out of these players. Because, yeah, if they're not in an academy environment and they're not getting those details, it would need to be actually in a one-on-one session or a very small session for somebody to really be able to critique it. Because on a Sunday, I used to coach last few seasons. I can see details, but because there's a number of players, you're not really going to get into it like that. So it almost seems like the players that want to get into academies, they need to have a good diet of coaches that can help them with those details.
Yeah, well, it's a harder thing to take a step back when your adrenaline is going and you're coaching the players. But that's one of the differences between the level of experience in the coach, and that the more experienced coach, they can take a step back and they can see things a little bit better. It's almost like if you're the manager and I'm the first team coach and I'm putting on the session, the manager will be there to see those details. And when they step in, it will be to give those little gems that the first team coach might not be spotting at the minute, but they can see it because they're looking at it from a different lens. One thing that I'll add is that in this day and age, where most of the academy clubs, they'll have access to huddle, so they can watch the games back. A lot of the coaches, sometimes they'll watch the game or the session back, and they might send a couple of clips to the players, so then you can coach them off the pitch as well. And the buy-in from the players tend to be a little bit higher because they're a technology generation, aren't they? They like seeing things on the screen. The days of you explaining, right, we're going to play 4-3-3. You're going to be the holder, you're the 8, and you're the 10. Those days they're slowly going away. So the players want to see it on the screen. So yeah, you can coach them off the pitch as well.
Yeah. Can I just jump in there, OC? So yeah, it is difficult. What I've found is, I think you've got, as Gabs has said, you've got the technology, you've got the resources there, and you've got the players are more determined potentially in the academy. The parents will help them more, and they're always looking to improve. Not saying a grassroots player isn't. The one thing I found was, if you've got a VO, that's great. If you haven't, what I used to do was give players homework. Pick out those things, give the players homework, try and create a drill or two that incorporates some of the not weaknesses, we can't say weaknesses, some of the areas of improvement for a couple of players, so that more than one player is getting benefit from those drills, and then try and assess it. But it's hard, and it's harder because and this is my question to Gabs, which is going to support your question, OC, is I think there's a difference in grassroots mentality to that of the academy. So I guess, Gabs, you can answer that in the sense, is it development or results driven? What is more important?
Do you play the game to lose?
Never in my life have I played a game to lose.
Exactly. So the kids ain't going to be any different. But so the kids are going to play to win, but can they win the game in the right way? Your job as a coach is to develop the players. The players' job is to try and win the game. Try to win the game doing the things that you're asking them to do. So if that means that that the back two, you're going to try and dribble out from your goalkeeper, then that's your task, and you're going to have to try and do it. And the difference between academy football and first team football is that even if it goes wrong, guess what? You're going to go and do it again, because that's how you're going to be able to build a tolerance. So it's about finding a different. It's about finding the right medium. Obviously, the coach wants to win a game, the players want to win a game, but it's not the be all and end all. The development comes first. What I often say at academy level, I would rather lose 10 games in a row, 2-1, 5-4, 6-5, 7-6, than win 10 games in a row, 10-0, 6-0, 4-0, 3-0. And the reason being, when the competition is high, the returns are high. So the players will get a lot more from sometimes losing in those really competitive games than they will from winning in those easier games. So as long as it's competitive, that's the main thing, because the players will get a lot of returns from it. Obviously, it's nice to win, but can you teach them something first? Can they leave a match day going, okay, I picked this bit up and I picked that bit up? One thing I've always done with the little ones, I've always asked them, right, end of the game, boys, we're going to go around. You're going to nominate a player of the game. Keep it short and simple, but tell us why. And that reason, it allows them to share with each other. Okay, so and so is my player of the game today because he was able to spot a 1-2 a couple of times, and he was able to get an assist from it. Whereas the other person might say so and so because their number 9 was really good and he won the ball off him 4 times by poking it or by blocking the ball. So it allows the players to share with each other, and then it also creates a bit of an environment where they want to have the best performance. They might not necessarily want to win more, but they want to have the best performance possible because they want their peers to actually say, "Oh, Gab was man of the match today because he did that really well." So those are some of the methods I use to get around that question of development versus winning. But you're there to develop the players, and the coaches need to remember that.
Yeah, and of course, and our job as coaches in grassroots football is to produce players for academy football, right? Mm-hmm. Ultimately, obviously, everybody's supposed to have fun, everyone's supposed to win, and enjoyment of the game first and foremost. But in order for us to develop players, we're developing them not just to go and be the best they can be in grassroots football, it's to get into academy football. So it's something we try to tell our parents and tell the players as well, that sometimes we're going to try things and they may not be successful, but we're going to repeat those processes to get the rewards, right? To build up that tolerance, as you said. And sometimes the parents don't always get that or appreciate that because they're there to win as much as they believe they're there for their child's development. And obviously that further kind of backs up your point. Sometimes we don't get the opportunity to do these things and practice these things as coaches in games because there's so much pressure in order to win certain games, depending on which league you're in and which club you're at. So I just wanted to add that and get Gabs' viewpoint on that. I know Dan's got a question, so I'm going to let him jump in.
Yeah, I'm going to bundle because you don't let me talk. So, Gab, I've got a couple for you. Going back to what you said, pure in pre-academies, I'm going to go a couple of years in now. So, do you think coaches in the academies, those maverick fair players, they coach? Do you think they're getting overcoached and coached out of that being maverick? So they're now becoming to as we're going to say, system players now to fit into a club system. Don't answer you. I got a few. I can see you thinking. Yeah. Also, yeah. If that is the case, what are the most common mistakes you've observed? Do you feel, in your opinion, coaching academies make around that? And finally, we've spoken to a couple parents where their experience with academies ain't the best, and some of them say if they could go back, they wouldn't go into academies right now. So, with the much desire to be in academies, have you seen and what's your thoughts on the academy dropouts, not released and retained, the boys that actually self-release themselves, that increase in numbers and how it works out?
So I'll give you a stat. The last World Cup that unfortunately Argentina won was the World Cup that, since they started recording the stats, had the least amount of dribbles, had the least amount of 1v1s. So what's that saying about the direction that football's gone in? I think those days of us, I remember back in the day, we'd all plan our days because Barcelona was playing in 2004 when we wanted to watch Ronaldinho because he was going to do something that was going to be slightly different, or you wanted to watch JJ Okocha in the Premiership because he was going to do something that's slightly different. I think the way that football's going, and we need to be very, very careful with, is we need to continue to encourage the creativity, because it's the creativity that makes football enjoyable for the players, for the spectators, and for the coaches. So it's something that we need to really, really encourage. I'm very proud of my heritage. But one thing I say a lot is we are the country that exports the most players, and every Champions League final since 2000 has had a Brazilian player. Now, if they're an attacking Brazilian player, you can guarantee one thing: they're gonna be able to get the ball, and they're gonna be able to take you on. Now, it might look slightly different because where we've had Ronaldinho, Neymar, and now we've got Vinicius. It looks completely different, but they still try to do similar things. They still try to have that element of creativity. So I think it's one of those ones where we need to understand that the 11-a-side game, the game that we see on TV, is different from the 5-a-side, the 7-a-side, the 9-a-side. And we need to be able to encourage those players to be able to do those different moments, because unfortunately we've got to a stage where if you do have that ability to be that maverick, you're worth a hell of a lot, aren't you? Because you look at recently Berriese going to Arsenal. He's gone for a significant figure because he can do something that not many players in football can do. So in terms of you putting him into a structured system, when you put someone that's got that ability, straight away they stand out. We're looking at like Lamine Yamal. Straight away you put him into a structured game, he stands out straight away, doesn't he? So it's about trying to encourage the players, because football hasn't changed. I don't care what anyone tells me, football hasn't changed. People say that Pep reinvented football and the 3-2-5 and all of that stuff. If you're a football historian, go and study the Hungary team of Ferenc Puskas. They used to do the same thing. You know what I mean? You look at Argentina and Brazil in the last World Cup playing 4-2-4. Go back to the 50s. That's what teams are doing. So it's going through a cycle at the minute. Our job is to try and make the players technically better. But what also comes from our job is trying to prepare the players for what the future game looks like. Now, what the future game looks like, we might not like it, but then we also have the responsibility to change it today. So if we want the game to have more take-ons, the coaches need to coach more 1v1s. They need to coach more step overs, more Ronaldo chops, more Cruyff, Zidane's, Busquets. Otherwise, you're gonna end up neglecting those players. In terms of self-release, I think academy football is a fantastic experience. It gives kids and the parents some opportunities that you'd bite your arm off. Do you know what I mean? I remember, I can say that I've coached a game against against AC Milan, against RB Leipzig. I've been in tournaments where Ajax was there and Borussia Dortmund were there. So it gives the players, the coaches, the parents those really cool opportunities that from the get-go the players look at that and go, yeah, that's a no-brainer. I want to do that. But essentially the parents know the players better than anyone else because that's your son. So as a parent, sometimes what you'll find is that your child wants to do this, but you know that this case ain't the best for your child. So sometimes you need to be able to make that difficult decision of actually, let me not put him in there at the moment. Let's go and play grassroots for another couple of years. Let him mature a little bit more, because then when he does go into that environment that's a little bit more serious, he'll be ready for it. And that comes at a trade-off, because you need to stick to your value and to your word. Because if you make that decision, then you need to understand that the academy opportunity is not a guarantee, because it's an extremely competitive environment. But saying that, there's other ways around it. It's not the be-all and end-all. I think now we're starting to see players that have dropped out of academy that are now going into pro football, and they're having careers. I mean, you look at I think one that's hit the socials and it's been really popular recently has been Richard Kone. If you look further back, you've had your Ian Wrights, you've had your Jamie Vardy's, you've got your Jake Tabor at Swindon that was playing step 5 and step 6. So it's becoming more common. So essentially, the parent needs to be able to see the bigger picture, and they need to do what's best for their child, because that's what a parent's there to do. You act on the best interest of your child, and sometimes that will come with making a difficult decision. But essentially, you need to be able to live by it, and when you live by it, you need to be able to help them, because if you don't help them, then there's always going to be the regret. If you live by it and you help them, then do you know what I mean? You can try and get something out of it.
Oh, I've got so many questions. Oh my gosh. No, so you hit a nerve. I was going to say the game's gone, right? I don't. That's disrespectful to all coaches out there. But the reason I was saying the game's gone is because I am sick and tired. I'm talking about the professional game here, the pro, of inverted wingers. I'm sick and tired of putting players on their natural side and they cannot take on anybody, and they look so awkward because their body shape is completely wrong. I'm sick and tired of that. I'm sick and tired of 10s who are not really 10s, and I know there's not many can play in the 10 position these days because a lot of systems don't have a 10. But these 10s that have to can only operate invertedly, say if they're right-footed, in the left half spaces, but they don't operate all over the pitch. That frustrates me. There's so many things about the modern game that frustrate me, like zonal marking, like what the hell, take responsibility for your own actions. So these are the things that I see, and I know Dan's picking up on, because a lot of the Mavericks have gone. But it sounds like you guys have got a plan, because you've got a coach for what's to come and hopefully what will be in the future. But I guess one question before I move on to the other is, what can parents do if their boy is a left-footed right winger? What should they be encouraging from that boy?
I think, you know when people say you need to be both-footed, you don't need to be both-footed. You need to be both-sided. They're two different things, and language is important, because you look at Eden Hazard. Yes. Eden Hazard was one of the most one-footed players that you've probably ever seen in the Prem, in terms of like the escalade that he's going to go into at some point. But if Eden Hazard received the ball on his weaker side, he can play a 10-yard pass. He can play a 15-yard pass. So he's both-sided. He's not both-footed. Most players across the top level, they're not both-footed. They're both-sided. I mean, if I ask you to tell me some both-footed players, you'll tell me Santi Cazorla. I mean, and you might struggle to name a couple. So technique is king. You can never be good enough at the basics. So if you have a son that's a left-footed right winger, encourage him to use his right foot. It's as simple as that, because the more you do it, the easier it's going to be. I often say that that kicking the ball with your less dominant side, it's like learning to play football again, because it feels different, it feels stiff, it feels like you can't really bend your knee properly, you struggle to get the same type of contact. But the way that you get better at it is by doing it. It's muscle memory, isn't it? There's no fancy answer that I can give you. Just go and practice and try and be the best you can at it, because it's going to help your game.
You're giving it to me both-sided, and encourage, I guess, that inverted left footer to play on the left-hand side as well, as much as he's playing on the right, and maybe in the centre. So like you say, muscle memory, body shape for all three sides of the pitch, which would be helpful for their development going forward. And then we'll get purer players in the modern game. And I guess one more question before I hand back to OC, because I know he's got one for you, is you mentioned Brazil, obviously bigging up Brazil there. Why not? Joga Bonito, all of that. What do you think? I get the Joga Bonito, I get the futsal. What does playing on the sand give Brazilians the edge? Why does that give them the edge in creativity? How does that help them? Because I get playing on different surfaces, but the sand is heavier. How does that help them master their technique and bring that, what they learn there, into the modern game?
Yeah. So, any Jamaicans in here?
Dan, put your hand up.
So let's test your knowledge on the reggae boys, Dan. 97 Gold Cup, Brazil versus Jamaica. Famous game, Junior Baiano elbows. I don't remember the name of the player that he elbows, but the reason I mentioned that game was there was a moment that Brazil had the ball and they've crossed it in, and the centre forward was Romario, and the ball's come into him, and there was someone coming in behind him, and he's popped it up like that the ball's gone behind him into the centre forward. It's a brilliant clip that you should look up. That came from playing on the beach. So you're consistently chesting the ball, you're consistently heading the ball, you're consistently jumping. I mean, I've just spoken about the little man himself, Romario. How many goals have you seen on Romario where he's jumped and he's the tiniest player on the pitch, but somehow he's managed to win a header because his positioning is really good? Which, playing on the sand, it's an aerial game, so you're consistently heading the ball, so you're learning how to position yourself all the time. But he would jump and it would be like he almost stayed. Pele was the same. I mean, there's the famous clip of the Gordon Banks save where Pele's headed it down and it's like he's just stayed. That's what playing on the sand does. It also develops different senses in your foot. So then in terms of your motor skills and your coordination, you'll find playing on a nice surface really, really easier. You're consistently volleying. So you're finding different ways to distribute the ball. So you've got volley, you've got chest, you've got head. For those of you that pride yourselves on two touch, yesterday I had a game with my non-league team, Burnham, and I was just working with the subs, and I said, right boys, we're gonna play two touch, but we're playing it Brazilian rules, so no thighs. So you have to use your feet. You have to use your feet, or you've got to be able to use a different part of the surface, but you can't do the cop out and use the thigh because it's an easy touch, isn't it? And that's how they get so good at it. I mean, you look at some of the clubs. I think Corinthians, who are my team, São Paulo and Palmeiras, what they've done now with their academies is they've brought back clay pitches because they've recognized that actually these boys, they're playing on nice surfaces a little bit too much. Let's get them playing on the clay where changing directions is a lot harder, where you're going to play a pass and it's going to pop up as you're striking it. But then also when you're receiving it, it's going to pop up. So then you've got to deal with it. Because if you think you're good on Astro, go and play on Hackney Marshes in the summer, where the ball's popping up. That's when you see if someone's good, because that's when they can adapt to a difficult surface and they still look to play. So yeah, that's what the sand does for you. It changes how you see the game. I mean, it's a great sport for anyone that's ever played it. Footy volley is what we call it. Very fun, very physically challenging, but very, very technical.
Yeah, and I actually knew the answer, but I thought it was very good to get your viewpoint on it, and explain it to the masses. And guys, this is why the worst R9 in history, who plays for my club, Richarlison, can do scissor kicks. That's the reason. He can't do anything else, but he can do scissor kicks.
I mean, you look at, do you remember the goal he scored against Serbia in the World Cup?
Oh, yeah.
So I remember watching that, and I don't remember who the commentator was, but when Vinny's crossed it into him, the commentator's actually gone and said, I think this was for ITV, he's had a bad first touch. He didn't have a bad first touch. He knew exactly what he was doing.
Put it up.
Because he's done it on the sand so many times that it was just instinct. But then the commentator that doesn't know that he's played in those type of spaces, they've looked at that and they've gone, oh, he's adapted really well. No, he hasn't adapted. That was his intention.
Yeah. It's the same commentator that said Dino mishit the free kick against David Seaman. Right. And if anyone thinks I'm glazing Brazil, I am. I grew up in Brazilian football, so I am. Sorry, OC. I'll take it back to you now.
No, all good. You touched on it a little while ago, but that piece around the inverted wingers does annoy me in the especially in the grassroots game. But there's one boy that I had last year. He's gone on to sign with like a top cat one, and I would obviously for development I'll play him on both wings, but 70% of the time he's playing on that right wing because all he wants to do is get that ball and get past that player, and he will destroy players. But yeah, there's something like that. The game's slightly gone, but I just wanted to drop that in there. But Gabs, I'm keen to hear about that coach. Did you say that you coach coaches? So is that a role within the FA, like a coach developer?
I work for the FA, but also where I've been quite fortunate to meet some really good people. I've also been able to go in and do some freelance work off my own back. So a piece of work that I did this year, which was probably one of my coaching highlights, I actually went to Mongolia and delivered a coach education clinic, and then I coached the players. So then we did a pre-program induction with the coaches in which we explained the philosophy that I was going to do. So I did the technical side, and then I had a Brazilian S&C coach with me that works with full-time pros, explaining the physical side to the coaches. So then we've gone and delivered it, and then at the end we debriefed it with them, and we was able to pick up a couple of bits and get some feedback from them. The same way that I've done, in the States, we've done it a couple of times where the coaches would come in and we'll put on a session, and if they have any questions, they can always ask. But yeah, I've been quite fortunate to do that across a number of different spaces, and it's something that I want to probably focus on in the next couple of years, because I think we have an obligation to develop that. If we have the best interest of the game at heart, we need to develop the coaches coming through, because they're the ones that are going to drive it.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you know what you spoke so much, and I'm hearing about the passion for the young ones. I'm hearing about the non-league coaching. I'm hearing about coaching. So with people like you in the game, just help to sort of shift it forward. And I know you're only one person, but like the passion and the dedication that you've got to the sport is really commendable. So yeah, I
appreciate that.
Hear it. Yeah, just on that coach to coach, I suppose. No, I'll leave that, because you literally it's come through the interview anyway. It's come through the interview. You want the game to improve, and I was going to ask like what led you to coach to coaches, but you've explained it. Like you want the game to rise, and yeah, that's the starting point, really.
I just wanted to take it back to where you're currently working, Gabs, I guess in a full time, and the way you speak passionately about the skill in the game, and what is it that you guys can do, given where you're based geographically, to capture those mavericks, those top players amongst all the sharks?
So my first time round at Orient, I was really fortunate. We had a really good set of staff around us, and we used to have a saying that was, "Guys, we've got the worst facilities, but we've got the best environment." And it was like it was something that we really embraced. And you look at the first team now, and you look at the players that we've got playing across the Football League, we must have done something right, because we've had players that have broken into the first team, but also players that have gone and played at a similar or a higher level than Leyton Orient, or they've been able to find a career in the game. They've been able to find a job in the game, at least, because that's two different things, isn't it? A career and a job in the game. So that's really good. So that was our mindset, because when players came in, especially with the younger ones, where we was very conscious that the players coming into us, they would have been at Tottenham, they would have been at Arsenal, they would have been at West Ham, they would have been at Crystal Palace. So because they were there, they had the potential to play for those clubs. So they're clearly talented players, but the thing that would make them want to play for us was the environment that we had and how we was with them. So could we make them love coming in? And a good judge of that is when the players come in, do they walk to the coach or do they run to the coach? That normally tells you how they feel about the space. So that was how we looked at it, and the way we got around it was, those Mavericks that we had, we was quite fortunate that we had staff that could deal with them and that understood them, because I think that's important. You need to be able to employ people that will reflect your local area, because the players that are going to play for you, they're going to be your local kids, and they can connect with them not just on a football side of it. So when you're playing a Northern game and you're sitting on a coach with them for 4 hours, like that, normally that's a great opportunity for you to build a relationship with some of these players, not just go and sit with the coaches and the players sit with the players. This brilliant opportunity for you to get to know them, ask questions and pick up different bits, and those little details, they matter. They matter because the players go home and they tell their parents, "Oh, mum, Coach Gab spoke to me, and he spoke to me and the coach, and we had quite a good conversation. He spoke to me about this, and he asked me how I'm doing in school and what my favorite subject is, and do I speak different languages, and do you know what I mean? Like little things like that. Do you know what I mean? They essentially, everyone remembers how people make them feel. So just make them feel. I'm not going to say loved, but make them feel like they belong in the environment, and they'll always be happy to be in there.
Yeah, makes sense. And I tell you what, we had Keaton on recently, and he said a similar thing about Millwall, because again, similar position, if you like, in the London region, but the environment was the most important thing, and the boys really enjoying the sessions and the coaching. So that sounds right. I guess one of the questions on that 4-hour journey to a team up north, would you have asked the boys recently, did the right man win the Ballon d'Or?
So I'm not going to lie to you. I was really upset with that. I was really, really upset with it. And I don't have anything against Ousmane Dembele, but I looked at it and I
two-footed, two-sided.
No. Let me land.
Yeah.
He played for.
I'm with you.
He played for Barcelona. We all remember when Ronaldinho come and play for Barcelona, and he did the presentation, and everyone, like, after that, you're under pressure. Just look at Dembele's presentation, and do you put them in the same conversation as Ronaldinho, Kaká, Ronaldo Nazario, Messi, Cristiano, Cannavaro? I don't think you do, but the young kids will disagree with me on this, and they can disagree with me on it because I'm not going to change my mind on it. So, I would have liked to see Lamine Yamal win it, but football's not always fair, so that's how it goes.
So if not Lamine, who should have won it? Dembele?
No,
Rafinha?
I'm not a big fan.
No.
When he wears the yellow shirt, he tends to go hiding a little bit. So
I hear that.
For me, it was Lamine. It was Lamine or it was Lamine. No.
Hands down. Fair enough. Fair enough. I thought I'd get your viewpoint on that. I don't disagree.
I've spoke to Gabs a lot. I know so much. I just thought it's great to get him on the show so he can tell the world how great he is and they can see. And you know what, Andrew? I have to give him massive props. I've known Gabs for about nearly 5 years now. Yeah. Kind of maybe 4 years, maybe. Yeah. And we've gone, an hour and a half probably, and not one single swear word come out his mouth. So
you had to ruin it, Dan. You had to ruin it.
When we come off, they say, I guarantee he'll be effing all the way in his house just to make up for the lost time. So
he knows this is a family show.
Yeah, we had this conversation. The disclaimer was sent out. Everything was clear. Yeah, but no, I thought it's great to have Gabs here. I know he's got a wealth of knowledge and experience, and I think he's given answers to all the parents that we know what we do. That's what we're here for, to provide the answers for this question that parents don't get to ask every day to people like Gabs and other guests we've had. So I thought it was great to get him on there, and he was no issues. I spoke to him 2 weeks ago. He said, "Yeah, put me in," and he's here. He's true to his word, and he's dropped gems and information that I guess we'll all take away from here and enjoy again.
Yeah, 100%. Part 2 pending. I think like you've been generous with your answers. You've been honest with your answers, and I really appreciate that and learned a lot. And I think, as Dan said, the parents will learn a lot, and that's who we do it for: the parents and the boys and girls who don't get those answers to those questions. And that's why we sometimes ask tough questions, and that's why my first question was a toughie, but I knew you could handle it, and you did yourself, and Piers proud. So I guess, Gabs, we've got one other question, but before I ask that question, I'm going to speak to the listeners and just ask them, if you like what you're hearing, if you're still here on this pod because you're enjoying the conversation, you know what you need to do. The subscribers don't match the listeners. So please hit the subscribe button right now. Do it now. Thank you. Smash the like, hit the notification, leave a comment. Tell me who should have won the Ballon d'Or. Should it have been Dembele, Lamine, Rafinha, Salah? Why was Cole Palmer in the top 8? We keep moving. We keep it moving. He's a good player. But back to you, Gabs. Now, this last question. Before you answer it, you have to promise to help us with this question, right? So, who do you think we should have on as a guest on this show? But before you answer that, you need to help us get them on.
Well, that puts me under a bit of pressure, don't it?
A little bit.
I think it'll be quite good to have someone that is a specialist in specific areas in football. So I know you've had goalkeeper coaches, maybe to have someone that's been a individual coach, or maybe a technical director, or someone that's held those type of roles within football. I'm not going to mention them.
We spoke about this in our pre-conversation.
About
who you think we should. I said I want to get here, and you said you better get us here for him. I'm not going to say his name just because he can't do it, but just the fact that the area of sport he does is something which in this day and age would be great. The psychology, just a little trigger.
Yeah. I've actually got 2 people in mind that I can put forward. So I'm not going to say their names because they've got to commit to it, and I'm not. I can't speak on their behalf. But I think there's a couple of contacts in my phone, but that I'm sure would bring a lot of value to some of the content that you guys are putting together.
Okay, so Dan, I'm going to leave that with you to chase up. Gabs can't come back on the show again unless he delivers, right? So that's on you now. No, all jokes aside. Listen, thank you very much for coming on, Gabs. It's been a pleasure.
No,
it's been great to speak all things Seleco, Joga Benito, Brazil, grassroots, academy football, coaching. It's been great. And I know the boys have enjoyed themselves. Where can people find you? Find any of your thoughts, theories, coaching tips?
So reluctantly, I've jumped on the socials. I've jumped on Instagram.
Good.
So yeah, at Coach Ghabriel Teles. Literally at Coach and how my name is spelt. And then yeah, you can find me on there. So if you have any questions, I'm always open, and I'll try my best to answer it. And if I don't know it, I'll tell you I don't know it. So yeah.
Brilliant. And we will follow you if we're not following you already, and keep up the communication. So listen, it's been fantastic. Guys, I will ask you one more time. If you know anybody who doesn't know about the Ball at All Costs podcast, please introduce them, send them the link. We've got Ghabriel Teles on, speaking all things academy football, all things grassroots, all things Brazilian football. It's Mongolian football. He's done a lot. These are the type of guests we get. We know you're true to this. Please introduce somebody who is new to this. He's been Ghabriel Teles. We've been Ball at All Costs, and we are out.